My best friend donated her kidney to save my life. 5 years later, I discovered she stole it from my missing brother. My best friend saved my life by giving me her kidney. I had her name tattooed on my wrist to thank her. Last Tuesday, I found out the kidney inside me never belonged to her. It belonged to my brother, who has been missing for 8 years. I was 26 when my body decided to attack itself. It was lupus, and it did not happen gradually over years. One day, I was jogging 3 miles around my neighborhood, and the next month, I was trapped in a freezing vinyl hospital chair with thick plastic tubes running out of my chest, watching my own blood filter through a noisy machine just to keep me breathing. Priya had been my shadow since the 2nd grade. She never missed a single dialysis appointment. She would drag her heavy work laptop into the clinic, set it on her lap, and do her corporate taxes while I slept. When the heavy steroids made my hair fall out in clumps, she showed up at my front door with a pair of electric clippers and shaved her own head completely bald just to make me laugh. When the clinic doctor sat me down and said my kidneys were entirely gone, he told me the national wait list was at least 5 years long. Priya grabbed my hand and demanded they test her immediately. She was not a match at first. The hospital coordinator told us we could try a paired exchange program, but Priya absolutely refused. She was strangely stubborn about it. She said she was going to be my direct donor or nothing. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. The hospital said there had been a rare charting update, and she was a perfect direct match after all. They called it a miracle. The extraction surgery was on a rainy Tuesday morning. She went into the operating room first. I went second. When I woke up from the heavy anesthesia, my throat was burning. I looked over, and Priya was lying in the hospital bed right next to me. She was wearing a cheap green paper cap and holding her side. She reached out, grabbed my fingers, and told me that I had a physical piece of her inside me now, and I could never get rid of her. My older brother Jonah disappeared when I was 18. He was 19 at the time. He and my dad got into a massive, screaming fight in our kitchen late at night. It was about money, about him dropping out of community college, and about him being gay. My dad yelled something so incredibly cruel and unforgivable that the entire house went dead silent. Jonah walked into his bedroom, shoved some clothes into a duffel bag, and walked out the front door at 2 a.m. Priya was sleeping over at my house that night. We heard the heavy front door slam shut. We ran out into the dark street in our pajamas, screaming his name, but all we saw were his brake lights turning the corner. For 8 long years, my family had absolutely nothing. No calls, no letters. My dad passed away with a heavy heart, and my mom kept Jonah's bedroom completely untouched, exactly the way he left it. Priya became my hero. For 5 years, I got to actually live. I got married. I went back to my job as a middle school teacher. Every single year on the anniversary of our surgery, Priya would take me out to a fancy dinner and order a custom cake with kidney twins written in frosting. I even paid a local artist to tattoo her name on the inside of my right wrist, right over my pulse. Last Tuesday, I drove to a brand new nephrologist across town because my husband and I had moved. The doctor was scrolling through my transferred digital file on his computer when he suddenly stopped and frowned. He told me it was incredibly strange because my donor was listed in the Federal Registry as a 26-year-old male with O-positive blood, and they extracted a left kidney with 2 distinct arteries, which was a very rare anatomy. I laughed out loud and told him he was looking at the wrong medical chart. I told him my donor was my female best friend, and she was 32. He quietly turned his flat-screen monitor around so I could see it. The official surgical report clearly said, donor male, 26, non-directed anonymous. He quickly clicked out of the window and apologized, saying it must be a massive clerical error from my old hospital. I walked out to my car and sat behind the steering wheel. Priya has A positive blood. I am O positive. You physically cannot give an O positive patient an A positive kidney. I knew that basic medical fact from my years sitting in the dialysis clinic. I just never asked any questions back then because I blindly trusted that the hospital handled the logistics, and Priya told me it was a miracle. I drove straight to Priya's apartment complex. She was not home from work yet. I reached under her welcome mat and grabbed the spare brass key she had kept there for years. I told myself I just needed to go inside and drink a glass of water to calm down. Her daily mail was piled on the kitchen island. Sticking out from under a stack of envelopes was an old, thick iPhone with a completely shattered screen. It vibrated against the granite. I picked it up. The incoming text message was from a contact simply named Jay. There were only 3 messages in the entire history. I read the last one. Priya, please stop sending me money. I am doing fine. Just tell Alina I think about her sometimes. I opened the photo gallery on the device. There was only one single picture saved. It was taken exactly 5 years and 3 months ago. It was a picture of a sterile hospital bed. A young man was sitting up in the bed. He had my brother's face, though his cheeks were sunken and he looked incredibly thin. He had a faded tattoo of a nautical compass on his forearm that Jonah got when he was 17. He was giving a weak thumbs up to the camera. His plastic hospital wristband clearly read Jonah Reyes. And standing right next to the bed, holding his hand with a massive smile, was Priya. The edges of my vision went completely white. I sank down onto Priya's cold kitchen floor and dialed the National Transplant Center from my own phone. I gave the operator my social security number and my ID. I asked them to confirm the identity of my donor. The woman on the phone said they could not release that information because the donor chose to remain strictly anonymous. I told her my donor was supposed to be Priya Patel, a female. The operator got very quiet. Ms. Reyes, your donor was absolutely not a female, she said softly. Your donor was a 26-year-old male who signed heavy legal paperwork requesting his identity be permanently hidden from you. Jonah would have been exactly 26 years old 5 years ago. I sat on the kitchen floor in the dark and waited. When Priya finally unlocked the door and walked in carrying 2 brown paper bags of groceries, she saw me sitting there holding the cracked phone. She knew immediately. She did not drop the bags dramatically. She just set them carefully on the counter, looked down at her shoes, and let out a heavy breath. She sat on the floor across from me and told me the entire twisted truth. She was never a genetic match. When she originally got tested, she failed completely. But she was obsessed with being the hero. She remembered Jonah's blood type from a high school physical form years ago. O positive, the universal donor. She had been secretly hunting for him for months on Facebook and calling homeless shelters because she knew I was actively dying. She was carrying a massive amount of hidden guilt because she was the last person to see him the night he ran away. She finally tracked him down in Spokane, living out of the back seat of his rusted car and working at a car wash. He was sick, but he had been clean for 6 months. She drove up there, looked my brother in the eye, and told him I was going to die in 8 months without a kidney. She deliberately did not tell him that our dad had passed away, or that our mom had been crying for him every single day. Instead, she told him that I absolutely hated him for abandoning us. She told him I never wanted to look at his face again, and that I would only accept a kidney if it came from an anonymous stranger. Jonah agreed immediately. He told her he owed me his life. Priya paid for his flights, his cheap motel room, and his private medical evaluation. She stood over him while he signed a non-directed donor form. She actually coached my brother on what to say to the psychiatric board so they would approve the donation without flagging it. After Jonah's extraction surgery was complete, Priya went to a completely different clinic and paid a shady cosmetic surgeon to make a deep, 5-inch incision on her own abdomen without removing any organs at all. She willingly had herself cut open and stitched back up just so she would have a realistic surgical scar to show me at the beach. She stole my brother from me twice. First, she stole his chance to come home to a family that missed him. Then she stole his kidney and took all the credit for it. "I just wanted to be the one who saved you," she cried, wiping her face. "I wanted you to love me the exact same way you love him." I asked her where my brother was right now. She said she had been wiring him cash every single month just to make sure he stayed away. She told me he was currently working as a mechanic at a small garage in Bend, Oregon. She said he fully believed that I knew he donated the organ and that I was simply choosing to ignore him out of spite. I did not scream at her. I just stood up, dropped her cracked phone on the granite counter, and walked out of her apartment. I drove my car 9 hours straight through the night. I found the garage just after sunrise. It was a dusty building called High Desert Auto. There was a man lying on a creeper board underneath a lifted Toyota truck. His arm was sticking out, and I saw the faded compass tattoo near his wrist. "Jonah?" I said, my voice cracking. He slid out from under the truck and sat up. He was 31 years old now. He had a thick beard and engine grease on his face, but he had the exact same gentle eyes. He looked up at me, froze, and slowly wiped his hands on a shop rag. "You really shouldn't be here, Alina," he said quietly, looking at the concrete. "Priya told me you didn't want this." I dropped to my knees on the dirty garage floor right in front of him. "I have your kidney," I whispered. He dropped the shop rag. His lower lip started to tremble, and he just sat there on the cold floor and started crying. "Does it work okay?" he asked, his voice breaking. I grabbed his greasy hands. "It works perfectly, Jonah. I have had it for 5 years." We sat on the floor of that garage for hours. I told him the absolute truth about everything. I told him our dad died, and Mom kept his bedroom exactly the way he left it. I told him about Priya's fake surgical scar. Jonah slowly lifted his stained work shirt. He had a massive, jagged, very real surgical scar wrapping around his left side. "I thought you didn't want me anymore," he cried into my shoulder. "I thought you only wanted the spare parts." I told him I never knew. We drove back home together that same afternoon. Priya has tried to call my cell phone 40 times since I left her apartment. I have not answered a single call, and I never will. I do not know how to even process forgiving someone who literally saved my life by completely destroying my family. If she had told me the truth that night 5 years ago, I absolutely would have accepted a kidney from a homeless brother I had not seen in 8 years. But she played God, and she took that choice away from me. Jonah moved into my house yesterday. He is sleeping in his old childhood bedroom. My mom drove over the second I called her. When she walked through the front door and saw him standing in the kitchen, she did not say a single word. She just walked up to him, grabbed his face with both hands, and buried her head in his chest. I am standing in my kitchen right now, listening to my brother and my mother talk quietly at the dining table. I pull my sweater sleeve down over the tattoo on my wrist, turn on the sink, and start washing the breakfast dishes.